Now, to join us talking NBA draft, specifically what the Phoenix Suns can do in it, we are proud to welcome the editor-in-chief and co-founder of Hoops HQ, and of course, Hopes of Campus Insiders, in-studio analyst for CBS. It's Seth Davis. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today, Seth.
What's going on, guys? How you doing, young fellas?
Oh, we're doing good. We can't talk about the best of the best.
I was telling my friends, like, I don't know when it happened that I'm always the oldest guy on the Zoom call.
Well, we're going to call it the wisest guy on the Zoom call.
Sure. Why not?
So we can't focus on the lottery and the best of the best here in Phoenix because the Suns, well, they traded away the rights to their own draft pick this year, but the draft is still crucial for the Suns, who hold the 29th pick and the 52nd pick. From your perspective, this year in college basketball, would you consider this a deep draft?
Yeah, I think I would consider it a deep draft. I mean, I think it sort of remains to be seen. Especially I think after the combine and everything. But yeah, I think it's certainly very strong at the top. I mean, that we know, right? So I think that, I'm a Wizards fan, not a Suns fan. So this is not a good year to not have a top pick, I guess. So the top of the draft, I think, is a little stronger than we're used to seeing. But yeah, I would say that I would describe it as a deep draft. Is it a super deep draft? Probably too early to tell.
Seth, obviously here in Phoenix, draft picks are not in abundance right now, but the Suns do have a pick. They're number 29 in the first round. Then they got another one in the 50s. Were there any players in the tournament that kind of impressed you to the point that they could be, maybe late first round prospects, or guys that kind of built their stock during the tournament?
Well, I think the first guy that comes to mind is Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. He obviously, was arguably the best player in the tournament, and was the reason why they won a national championship. I've seen him a little bit all over the board. I think at this point he's probably going to be gone by the time Phoenix gets there at 29. I'm just looking at a mock draft right now on my laptop. Like, I see Chaz Lanier from Tennessee. Like, that'd be a pretty good one to get at 29. So, I think you're going to get a quality player, and then it's a question of, getting a good fit and then developing him within your system and your franchise. Probably going to spend a good part of his rookie year in the G League. But, you're drafting at the end of the first round, you get someone who you feel like should be able to help you within a year or two.
Seth, I'm curious, what do you deem as the position of strength for this upcoming draft?
To be honest, guys, like, it's a little early to have sort of dug into it. I mean, I think it's a wing heavy draft when you look at the top of the draft with Cooper Flagg and Edgecombe and Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson. I'm a little bit more familiar, obviously, Con Kneppel. I'm more familiar with the college guys than the internationals. So, and I just think that generally speaking, that's kind of the way the game has gone. Like, if you're positionless, it used to be, back in the old days, they called you a tweener, right? They say, well, he doesn't have a position. He's a tweener. That was a negative thing. And that's become now a positive thing. Like, if you're a tweener, that means you're positionless, you're versatile. And they especially want to see that versatility on the defensive end. That should be something you guys should be looking out for, who can guard multiple positions, because everything is so ball screen heavy. Everybody can shoot. So you got to, spread the floor. You got 6'10", 6'11" guys who can stretch the floor and also put it on the deck. You need someone who can do a lot of that switching defensively.
Before we continue to look at this draft, it's funny because I'm looking back at this past year with Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro and how important they were to the Phoenix Suns' success and them being later round picks. What was your analysis of them coming out of college? Because they had some pretty glaring weaknesses that a lot of people were concerned about when having them on their draft boards.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know, right? I mean, Oso played in a really good system for him at Marquette, and he was a late bloomer as well, right? So, you just weren't sure how the physicality would translate. But I tend to feel like, if guys are good players in college, they're probably going to be good pros. In Dunn's case, it was a lot harder to tell. You could see flashes of his potential. You never really saw it put together. He wasn't a big time scorer. Of course, he played in the system at Virginia that didn't score a lot of points. But Tony Bennett's got a pretty good track record of developing players and having them ready to be in the NBA. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think when you're talking about where Phoenix is going to be drafted, late first, early second, it's a lot more art than science at that part of the draft. What are the intangibles? What's the competitiveness? It's funny when I talk to NBA scouts, they tend to not like the older players, right? Oh, he's a senior. He's got less upside. We prefer him young, even though he's not as good. He's got more upside. I'm like, I didn't realize people were finished products at 21, 22 years old. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can get better if you're a college senior, or even a fifth-year senior, and then you enter the league. And of course, you're able to make an impact more so right away. And so I do sense that NBA teams, NBA scouts are a little bit more open-minded about that. That say, hey, first of all, here's a guy we know who can play. He can compete right away. And also, just because he's a fifth-year senior, maybe even a sixth-year senior with the COVID year coming out of college, that there's still a lot of room to develop in terms of his basketball potential.
Seth, you mentioned it's probably a little too early to be digging into the nitty-gritty of the draft, but if you were the GM of the Phoenix Suns, how are you approaching this draft? What are you kind of looking for in a prospect? And are there any players that kind of fit what you would be looking for to add to this team?
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys follow the Suns a lot more closely than I do. I think the first question, can you guys fill me in on where we are with Kevin Durant? Are we sure that he's even on this team, or is he? I mean, I know there's a lot of chatter about him at the trade deadline. So when free agency, do we know that Durant is on this team next year, or where are we with KD?
Probably not.
Right.
I guess there's a chance, but most likely it's a no.
So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's the first question. And if Durant is not there, then you have to be careful. And I know they're smart enough to be careful. Be careful about, we need to draft another Durant, right? We need to find, first of all, there is no Durant in terms of, they don't know who's going to be as good, but we need to find a 6'11" two guard who can go get us 40 by rolling out a bet. They're not going to find that. Now, there are a couple of players who are sort of Durant-like, Ace Bailey at Rutgers, but he's obviously not going to be around. So I just think you want a good piece and someone who can maybe become an asset that becomes part of a trade. Certainly, like a lot of teams, looking at Phoenix's roster right now, there's not a lot of size on this team, but the way that the game is going, obviously, is you don't want size, you want size with skill. So, for example, like I know that Derek Queen's not going to be around at that point, but, he's got size, but there's, folks who are kind of all over the map, frankly, about whether Queen is going to be an effective pro. I know he's projected to be a lottery pick. Just looking at some of the other, players who are projected, like Will Riley out of Illinois, again, may not be there. Some of these top picks in the second round, Danny Wolf is a very intriguing guy who, might be available as a 7-footer who can play inside and out. He's obviously not going to do it like Durant. Janai Broome is a very, very interesting case. I am frankly not super convinced that he's going to be a great pro. I think he can play in the league, but, kind of similar to Zach Edey, and Zach Edey came along at a different pace. But, if someone is the best player in college basketball, he's probably going to be an NBA player. But Janai Broome is not somebody you look at and say, what, boy, that's a pro. You look at him almost like a Drew Timme at Gonzaga, right? Like a really, really good college player, but as of now, not really an effective pro. So that's the guessing game at this part of the draft. That's what kind of makes it fun. Like when I talk to scouts about this player or that player, and I'll make an argument for certain guys that I like. And the scout will say to me, well, would you bet your job on him? I said, no, but I'll bet your job on him. And that's what it is. It's a big guessing game.
Seth, I'm a big-time Michigan State Spartan fan through and through. Didn't go to Michigan State, but mentally I was there since I was like 8 or 7. All of the guys that came through Izzo's program and made it to the league are cut from a certain cloth. I'm curious from your perspective, do you see teams looking at the program that players are coming from and taking that into account in addition to the talent and the individual that they may be bringing in?
No question. No question. And again, these are sort of at the edges, right? I mean, the fact that someone played for Izzo won't make them go from 30 to 10, but it might make them go from 30 to 26. You know, it might make them go from undrafted to middle of the second round, especially at that part of the draft. You know, when you get to the later parts of the draft, middle to the end of the second round, character and intangibles really mean a lot because you're getting someone who's probably going to spend most, if not all of his rookie season in the G League. And is he going to be able to figure it out? Is he going to show up and work? Is he going to stay out of trouble and not cause those problems? Is he going to be part of a unit? Is he going to be part of a franchise and understand that it's not all about him? Is he going to fight through adversity? Is he going to come in entitled or is he going to come in professional? You know, a lot of these guys are signed because they want him in practice, right? I mean, only, 8 or 9 players are going to play in a game. So that means 6 guys are not going to get in the game. And who are they? They're in your locker room. They're on your team bus. They're at team meals. They're at practice. Who do you want on your franchise? And for players like that, playing for a guy like Tom Izzo is a huge, huge, huge plus.
Seth, last one I had for you. Me and Eric here are ASU guys, but we'd be remiss if we did not ask on behalf of our Wildcats program here about Caleb Love, who is entering the NBA draft. What do you think about his prospects as a draft entry?
I mean, I think Caleb Love's a pro. I think he's a big-time player. He's a big-time scorer. I mean, obviously, his issue in college was was efficiency. You know, he's more of a volume shooter. Reminds me what the great Dean Smith used to say. He used to say, "I don't need outside shooters. I need outside makers." But the thing about Caleb is he's competitive as heck. And the bigger the game, it seemed like the better that he played. And even in the games when he played poorly, I always liked his competitive spirit. You know, he wasn't afraid to go 2 for 12. Maybe he should have been. But there's something to be said for that amnesia about, I know I missed my last 9, but this one's going in. And by the way, if we need a bucket at the end of the game, I don't care how I played at that point, I need to have that ball in my hands. That's a unique quality. So he's got to get better. I think he'll put in the work. I think he'll put in the time. In the NBA, if you can be a floor spacer, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the burst. He just needs to tighten up that jader a little bit. And if he can be that, and again, it's tougher now. The toughest thing for him will be, he can't afford to be a volume shooter, especially at the start. He's going to come off the bench and get 1 or 2 pops, playing in space, catch and shoot, coming off ball screens, maybe some pick and roll action. But, he's not going to have an entire game to shoot his way into a rhythm. He's going to have to do it right away. So it's going to be a big time adjustment. But I think he's a pro. I'm saying it right now. I think Caleb Love's a pro. I think he's going to be in the league for a number of years.
All I heard was forks up. That's all I got from that one.
That's right.
Seth, thank you so much for joining us here on The Fly. We appreciate you.
I love the hustle. Keep it up, guys. I'm honored that you invited me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Make sure, of course, if you're not already following Seth, you can do that at Seth Davis Hoops, of course, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Hoops HQ and all over the college basketball world. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys. Okay.